Okay, everyone, we're back here. We're on the floor of Black Hat, though you really can't tell because we went with a black screen here. But I couldn't think of two better people I'd like to introduce you to. If you read Security Boulevard, if you've been in the security world for more than a minute, you probably know both of these guys, though you may not know them, you know them. Let me introduce you to two friends. I know them both 25 years. To my immediate right, Robert Hansen. A lot of you may know him as R-Snake, though. Look, as we get more gray or less hair, we go by real names. So it's Robert Hansen. To my far right is a really good friend. I've known him for a really long, 25 years too. He can tell you about his history. It's my friend Jeremiah Grossman. Jeremiah, Robert, thanks for joining us on TechStrong TV. Always a pleasure. So guys, you know, you're like cyber royalty to me, cyber security royalty to me. But you guys made a big announcement about a week before, a couple days before the event this year. Why don't we dive right into that, and then we could come back and talk about what's up in your lives and everything else.
Sure. Robert and I, we've been running companies together for a long, long time. What we care about most of the industry is keeping people safe, keeping people from getting hacked. And the way we do that is we try to find the world's most important cybersecurity problem, the one that has to be solved. We learn everything we can about it. Once we find a solution, then we start a company and we go after it. So we don't start with a technology looking for a problem. We find the problem and we go after it for as hard as it takes.
Absolutely. And I mean, just for people who aren't familiar, companies you've done together. So look, the first, I think I met you, you were still at Yahoo.
Yep.
You had, or maybe just leaving Yahoo, you did White Hat.
Yeah, I started my career 25 years ago at Yahoo. I was one of those kids that hacked Yahoo Mail, and they gave me a job instead of calling the FBI.
Yeah, lucky for you.
I took what I learned there, and I learned that web security was a problem, and I wanted to solve it. So we created White Hat Security to scale and mechanize application security and vulnerability assessments. And, of course, you had to get the other best in the world AppSec guy out there, and that was Robert.
Absolutely, right? And look, White Hat kind of invented pen test or AppSec testing as a service almost, if you will. But then that was one company. What came next?
The next one was when we left, White Hat. I did a short time at SentinelOne in the early days to focus on ransomware, which wasn't a thing yet, and go after endpoint. But that was 2 years. In the meantime, while we were working on something for attack surface management, what we were learning was a significant number of the breaches were having to do with a previously unknown asset that they would have secured it if they know it, they owned it. And so I'll have to pass it to Robert here. But I said, Robert, the only way we're going to solve the attack surface management problem is to download a copy of the internet first. And so Robert, true to what he is, he goes, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think people, when they hear that, they're like, that can't be possible. But we were processing by the end like multi-petabytes a month. And
I remember.
And when people think of the word internet, they're thinking Google. That's just the web. That's a searchable web. What we really needed was a copy of every piece of metadata.
Every IP address.
Everything. Every IP, telephone, and printer, and whatever. So that was a pretty big challenge, but it enabled us to answer the question, what do people own? And so that kind of took us down this path.
I remember you working on that. You know, before I did Still Secure, my friend Raj, who's one of the co-founders with me is Still Secure, he started a company, Quova, which was IP geolocation. Very similar thing. You had to geolocate every IP address or figure out, which IP address went where. It's a huge undertaking. It was simpler then because it was smaller then. It was a lot bigger by the time you did it. And of course, that led to another company, and I'm blanking on the name right now.
Our most recent one. So Bit Discovery, the attack surface management company. So we raised money, and during the pandemic, and the company lasted a whopping 3 years. So it was a very fast-moving company. It was very successful, very fast, and it was acquired by Tenable.
Right.
So, so Robert and I we have a background in application vulnerability management, but not, network or CVE vulnerability management was familiar to us. And so what we learned there was that this is a very big 25-year-old problem. Everybody has a vulnerability management problem. They were sick of it. Everybody was buried in vulns, didn't know what to fix first, and everybody was still getting hacked. So we're like, okay, we got to set out and solve this problem. So Robert and I have taken hundreds of meetings to learn everything we can from everybody we could about this problem to figure out what the problem was before we could solve it. So 2 years later, we were ready to launch the company because we think we had some answers.
And that company is?
That's Root Evidence, also known as just Evidence. We go by that as well. But I think one of the cool things is we pulled in tons and tons and tons of data. Instead of, like, most people are just like anecdotal evidence only, but we pulled in information from every source we could possibly find just to see if there's anybody who agreed. And it turns out no one agrees. And that was sort of the premise that got us thinking down this path, is like, well, if everyone is disagreeing, that probably means that everyone is, at least everybody but one is wrong, but probably everybody's wrong. And so we got to think of an entirely new tack. Like, how do we tackle that? Fortunately, we've been talking to the insurance industry for years and years and years. So we had really, really good relationships with them. And they started sharing with us some details about claims. And it turns out you don't need to look for 300,000 CVEs. It's a much, much more finite number, much easier to do.
Absolutely. So I have a little experience in this, right? I started a vulnerability management product that's still secure in 2003. A lesson I learned in business: if there was a really good solution, there'd be one, maybe three. There's a reason why there's dozens of vulnerability solutions. And I would say, Robert, it's not that one is right or one is wrong. They're all a little wrong and a little right. Right? Everybody has kind of nibbled on the edges here, but no one's really solved it. So,
and enterprises feel that. So,
oh, absolutely.
So the one observation that you can reference this, only 1% of all known vulnerabilities have ever been exploited. And that has been the case for quite some time. So if the prioritization models are working, why is it always 1% of vulnerabilities? So that's something to contend with. So the concept that we're bringing forward is evidence-based vulnerability management. And the way to describe it is, any given vulnerability could have evidence of exploitability, it could have evidence of attacker activity, and evidence of attacker breach and loss, financial loss. If you have all those three, those are the ones you fix first.
Right.
If you don't have breach and loss data, you have effectively a kevless vulnerability, which is fine, but that's the next down the list. You remove evidence of attacker activity, then you get into prediction and prioritization. So what we want to do is concern ourselves with the ones you absolutely must fix now. No ratings, no scoring, no color codings. You fix these. And if you do that, you're better than 99% of everybody, and you're not going to get hacked.
You know, I'm reminded, I don't know, you guys know Giddy Cohen? Oh, he sold the company, but it's not 20 years old. Giddy was the first one I saw who generated attack maps of vulnerabilities. So it would find a vulnerability and then work backwards from there out to the internet to see, is it reachable? Is it exploitable? Is it fixable? And how is it fixable? Is it patchable? Can you close a port down? You know, what's the remediation path? And darn, I can't remember the name of his company, but Giddy Cohen was the founder. And I thought that was one of the best things I've ever seen in how do we tackle this. Now, we didn't have AI. We didn't have the reams of data that you guys had. But it was a holistic approach to saying, let's get out of the hamster wheel of just giving you a phone book of CVEs and say, I'll see you next year, right? Which was the kind of state of the art when I was doing this in 2003.
Right. Well, imagine that's what you get, right? You have like 50, 100,000 vulnerabilities. Some of these companies have millions of vulnerabilities. You go fix a bunch of vulnerabilities. The next day you have more vulnerabilities. You're not actually really moving the needle at all. And we spent a lot of time thinking about like what if you have 10 vulnerabilities, equal chance of a bad thing happening to each one of them, and you have $1 million in the pot in the middle, any one of them gets you there. If you only fix 9, but you leave the last one there, like, you actually just wasted time.
You probably shouldn't have fixed
any of them, which is a weird concept, and I think security is going to have a really tough time, like, really thinking through that. And, of course, there's a lot of variables there, but I think one of the cool things about looking at the insurance industry is we're like, here is loss. We are actively seeing loss in these places. why don't we fix these first?
Right.
And the nice part about that is now we're talking dollars and cents. We're no longer talking about, some prediction model that, and no offense to those guys, because I think that is really very tricky and interesting. It's just that it's very hard to predict when there's only a handful of vulns. And depending on who you talk to, and we have reasons to believe some of these numbers, it's definitely less than 1,000, let's call it that. So we're talking a fraction of a percent. So if you're going to make a prediction, you have better be perfect if you're going to get exactly those vulnerabilities.
Absolutely. Look, no one manages risk better than the insurance industry. That's what they do. And I've never met a poor insurance company, right? So I think that's a great model. My question, though, to you guys is, does it wind up being like the OWASP Pop 20, where it's like a static list and right, this is a list that needs to be constantly cared for and guarded?
That's a great question. To lead into that, what we've learning is about 50% of the breaches that lead to loss have something to do with a remote exploitable CVE. So if we wipe those out, the ones that Robert was mentioning, we can reduce 50% of the losses. That's huge. That's the impact that we want to have.
Does that list, if there's 1,000 vulnerabilities, how does that get updated?
So right now, it's generally speaking a static list. That's why we know the vuln management industry is getting it wrong. Because if it's only 1% of vulns, that means the adversary is not forced to innovate to take on the next one. So if we get the prioritization right, we should expect the list to change over time. Right. And that's going to be our bellwether if we're doing it right.
So if we see that list starting to, that's right, that's a good thing.
So if the list changes, we're doing it right, and that's what our intent is.
Increasing costs.
Yep. Let me ask you another question. So there's finding vulnerabilities and there's fixing vulnerabilities. I get what you're doing to help find the right vulnerabilities, let's call it that. What is evidence help to fix those vulnerabilities?
So ultimately, that's not our job. That's the customer's job. But we can make it easier. And I think the major way we make it easier is we help them make their own business case to their own executive team about why they should prioritize, both by reducing the amount of chaff, a bunch of vulnerabilities that will never be exploited, have never been exploited by anyone. Now, if it's a much more definitive list with known attribution to claims data, and we know what the claims losses are, now it's just a matter of what kind of cost it is. So if it's like $1 million to fix a vulnerability that'll cost you $5 million if you don't fix it, well, that's a $4 million ROI. That is a very easy business case to make to your CFO, who, make no mistake, that is the real risk officer of the company, not the
CISO or any of those people.
Exactly. So I think that's really where our main focus is now. We could always pivot more into that area later, but just by starting talking dollars and cents, I think that's a big win for the customer.
Absolutely. Another piece of this, though, is I used to call it job security, right? The vulnerability, the guy who's responsible, or gal, whatever, the person responsible for vulnerabilities, vulnerability management, the team, they've got to be incented to hit the right stuff. You know what they say, right? If nothing happens, we did our job. That's not 100% true, to tell you the truth. Nothing happens because it didn't happen yet. That doesn't mean you're doing your job. How do you help that work or show metrics that, hey, I am doing my job and we're doing a damn good job with evidence?
So that's a fantastic question, one we contend with all the time, because if we're going to reduce the set of vulnerabilities that matter, then we should get to vuln zero really, really quick.
Yep.
So what we want to be able to do right now, when companies get hacked, the standard PR answer is the attacker was sophisticated. Please don't sue us. We did everything we possibly could.
It was a 0 day, of course.
Where we want to move people to is, if somebody gets breached, it will only be by a vulnerability that no one has ever exploited ever. That's a defensible position. What more could they have done? They fixed every vuln that has ever gotten anybody breached.
Right.
That's pretty good. That's better than...
It's the 0 day argument, right?
Well, not even a 0 day. It just, no one exploited that one for whatever reason, 0 day or otherwise.
It happens. Now, let me just business model a little bit. Back in the day, we used to sell it by how many hosts we were scanning, because it was scanning, right? How many hosts we were scanning, how many IPs, how many nodes, how many vulnerabilities. How do you want to, skin the cat today. How is this packaged?
The business model will be software as a service. You should be able to go to a website, put in your company name and hit scan. It's the most straightforward thing around. And what we want to be able to do is we don't want to wow the customer with, look how many giant plates of red you have and all this red. No. We want to help them in terms of dollars and cents. This is what you need to fix. This is what it's going to cost to fix. And this is how much money you'll retire. You'll retire at risk. We want to get to vuln 0, at least for the vulns that matter. That's the best anyone could ask for in this world.
So you don't, I know this sounds old-fashioned, no agents, no internal sensors, pizza boxes, or any of that.
We only need as much as the adversary does,
right.
Which is effectively
the
nothing.
eye view.
Yes.
Right.
Again, our background
cool.
is breaking into things. That's where we came from. So we want as little as possible. We want to see what the actual risk is.
Let's talk a little about rollout availability. Robert, can people go on right now?
No. We literally just started we got our fundraise, whatever it was, 2 weeks ago now. So it'll probably be a few months before we're ready for design partners to start really actually using it. It'll probably take another 6 months, I'd guess, before a fully rolled out UI is freely available to anybody. It depends a little bit on what feedback we get from the customers, because one thing Jared and I really spent a lot of time doing is absolutely making sure our customers are this has solved the problem. If it doesn't, we have to go back and fix it. So that's the real question mark, is what rejiggering do we need to do to make it, one of the things we really want to focus on is speed, for instance, being really, really, really fast. Well, if it turns out that causes problems, we're going to have to do workarounds, for whatever reason. So it's an unknown until we get there. But the good news is we do have a lot of experience building these kinds of things. So
sure.
So for those that are interested, we have a really good idea of what needs to be built, where we're going to need help from the industry, practitioners, vuln management teams, with the people we've been meeting with the last 2 years, is what does it look like? What do you need it to look like? We know what needs to be done. What do you need it to look like? So for those that are interested, reach out. We want to hear from you. We don't have all the answers.
Look into that camera. Where do they reach out?
Oh, reach out, rootevidence.com. Sign up for the mailing list, and we'll reach out. We will meet with you. We want to learn from you. We want to solve this problem. We're not ever going to have all the answers, but we'll build nonstop until we solve it.
And with your track record, you got a good chance that's happening sooner than later. Guys, I can't wish you enough luck, success, and strong tailwinds as you go forward here. If you don't mind, I'd like to just pivot a little bit. Let's talk Black Hat. So I first met you in Black Hat, I think in 2005. I got hacked on my iPhone 3.
I remember.
Yep. And it was, I forgot the dude's name. I think he's still in jail. Not for hacking me, of course, but he was an idiot anyway. And Jeremiah, I probably met you around the same time, but you started, I knew you more for Black Hat for the jiu-jitsu stuff with Hoffa and everything, right? That had to start also around 2005, 2007, maybe, something like that.
My first Black Hat was 2001.
Yeah, well, mine was 2003.
I got you.
Yeah, we used to be at Caesars in the hallway. Yeah. I had a booth overlooking the Venus pool. And if you would take a briefing from my guys, I'd let you use the binoculars. That's how long ago and wrong that was. But anyway, Black Hat's changed over the years. It's, in many ways, it's not what it was, but it's something better, different than what it was. You guys are both intimately involved in the whole week's worth of activities. Share with the audience, if you wouldn't mind, a little background on this.
Yeah, well, I was probably, if memory serves, I think I might have been one of the very first board members for the main conference. So helping select talks and make sure that they're of the quality that we want. But gradually, Jeremiah and I think he was also on that with me. I think we decided it was better to spend more of our time on the CISO Summit. It is just really important to make sure that the CISOs are getting the kinds of information they need to get. And so, fortunately, there's a lot of people who backfilled and did a great job, and that's why the main conference has done so well. But our focus has really been more on the CISO event, the Cyber Insurance Summit, the Micro Summit, and the Innovation and Investor Summit, which is all these sort of micro summits that kind of float around the periphery of the conference, but are really important to sort of pushing the needle.
I think that's the model. Whether you go to the Cloud Native, like KubeCon Summit or RSA or Black Hat, it's these satellite conferences, or what I call them, or conference within the conference, micros, that you really get a lot. If that's your thing, it's a deep dive, a deeper dive than you're going to get going to a keynote or walking the floor and getting, distracted by lights and buzzers. So it's great that you do that. Give us kind of a metric. So for instance, Jeremiah, the CISO Summit, how many people are in there?
So the CISO Summit is fantastic because we like talking to CISO, see what's top of mind for them. And so the CISO Summit this year was 400 CISOs all in the same room. So the way we do the CISO Summit is a little bit different than the briefings. The briefings take submissions, and then the review board picks the best of the best. And, Robert and I have both given many talks there. They do a fantastic job. The CISO Summit's different. The CISOs have an agenda. They know exactly what they want to learn. So we get about 10 topics down of things that they want to learn, and then the review board sources the world's leading experts in those topics, and we invite them in and just let them loose to speak their message and what they know. So the content is super high quality. We have generals and all the people that are front line of the breach, Salt Typhoon breach and things like that.
Right.
Things you can't get anywhere else.
Absolutely. I had friends at the Investors and Innovators Summit. They said it was great, Robert.
Oh yeah.
People who are home maybe didn't see it, don't know about it.
Yeah, it's a brand new as of last year event. So this is the second time we've done it. And I think we learned a lot of lessons last year, and it was really good. So the content is basically a mix of people who are, entrepreneurs getting into the industry. Maybe they have a company, but they haven't quite figured out how to take money or haven't figured out how to talk to customers, or they're sort of in that growth phase and they're just starting to figure their way through. And then the other half is a whole bunch of very seasoned VCs who are trying to meet those same people. So it's a really kind of magical thing. It's like everyone's just kind of coming together and sharing stories and kind of like, who are you? And let me give you your business card. It's like just tons of deals getting made right and left. But it's also a lot of great advice, really well-meaning advice, because there's a peer group there too. It's a whole bunch of other people who are struggling to meet the other people on the other side of the fence. It's great. It's a great conference.
It is. No, it's great. I stopped by briefly. I was grabbing Michael Farnham out of there. But so guys, what are you doing in your spare time? You still doing your podcast?
Occasionally.
Yeah,
occasionally. So I do product demos. So companies will come to me and for free. I don't charge anybody anything, but they'll come on there and they'll do about an hour-long presentation, 45-minute presentation. I ask them questions with Trey Ford. He's my sort of co-presenter. And but we ask them kind of, I wouldn't say elbows out hard questions, but the kinds of questions that if you're sitting on the other side of the fence and you're a security expert, if that answer was a good answer or not. You know what I mean? And the nice part is, unlike having to put your email address in somewhere, you can just watch it and enjoy it. And if you want to do something with them, you reach out to them. And we've got a whole bunch of people who've wanted to meet that company. So it's ended up being a great sales channel for a lot of companies.
Good for you, man. Where can people get that podcast?
Just look for Our Snake Show Demo Day.
Beautiful. Thanks, Robert. What about you, Jeremiah?
For hobbies, so I guess for the Black Hat related hobbies. So a long time ago, I started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu like 20 years ago, and rather than go out to the vendor parties after Black Hat and the conferences where there's crowds and noise and things like that, I decided to get a workout in. So I would visit Jiu-Jitsu academies. So at Black Hat, rather than go to the vendor parties, I would find an academy, and somebody saw me leave the conference once and they said, "Can we come?" That was Chris Hoff. And I said, "Yeah, sure." So we started training, and then the next year more people wanted to come. And then it grew to a life of its own, where now I put 60-plus computer security people on the mat with UFC fighters, and we learn and spar. It's like, it's a crazy event.
Yeah,
So
it is. It's really cool.
The pictures are fantastic. It's fun every time. So
I love it. Guys, fantastic. It's great seeing both of you. I want to leave the audience with one thing. Rootevidence.com. Rootevidence.com. Check it out. This is going to be something you can get in early here and watch it. Robert, Pleasure, man. Jeremiah, two of my heroes in security. We're live. Well, we're not live. You're watching this recorded, but we were live when we recorded it. We're a Black Hat. Stay tuned. We'll have more. Bye-bye.